Good evening. My name is BJ Ward. I'm the director of the Visiting Author Series at Warren Community College, and I'm delighted to welcome you here tonight for a very special event. First, I must thank some entities that help us run these events and have helped us run them for, since 1996. The Visiting Author Series is supported by a grant from the Warren County Division of Cultural and Heritage Affairs. Thanks to the administration and the Board of Trustees of Warren Community College for continuing to support this series. This is a special evening, December 9th, 2021, during what for many of us is a special time of the year during a difficult part of American history. We have as our guests tonight two treasures of the New Jersey poetry scene, two writers whose work is respected and beloved by an audience that reaches well beyond our state's borders, Gretna Wilkinson and Sandra Zulauf. They have each agreed to read for about 15 minutes, sharing original holiday poems, as well as some written by others. They will then come together at the end of this webcast for a duet of a poem most of you know. Our first reader, Gretna Wilkinson, began her career as a missionary teacher in the jungles of her native Guyana. She is the author of 5 chapbooks. Her latest, Opening the Drawer, was published by Cool Women Press. A Dodge Foundation poet, she is published in Saranac Review, the Literary Review, and the Poets of New Jersey, from Colonial to Contemporary, among others. She's been featured in the New York Times, the Star Ledger, and the Courier News. After 17 years as a college professor, she joined the Visual and Performing Arts Academy of Red Bank Regional High School, where she ran the creative writing program. She is an honorary Eagle Scout, Monmouth County Art Educator of the Year, and Red Bank Regional Teacher of the Year. I was going to say that many narrators inhabit Gretna's poems, but I think it's more accurate to say that Gretna's poems inhabit many narrators. She so felicitously employs narrative stances to best give a poem she's writing a chance to manifest in the reader's or listener's world. And strung throughout her oeuvre is the belief in redemption, as embodied or perhaps called forth by song. Poem after poem, she actively finds the glistening in the shattered. Which of these poems are songs, are blessings, are calls to action, are love letters to the spirits in all of us? All of them, all of them, all of them. I'm delighted to welcome our very special guest tonight, a particularly pleasurable form of rapture, Dr. Gretna Wilkinson.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, BJ, for your generous introduction.
Thank you.
Let's jump right in. This first poem is titled Boxing Day in Vredenhoek. Boxing Day is a day of major celebration, the day after Christmas Day or second day after Christmas tide. In some countries, it is celebrated as a second Christmas Day. The other thing is, Vredenhoek is the village where I grew up. It's Dutch and it means peace and hope. Boxing Day in Vredenhoek. Any minute now, grown-ups will parade through the lone village road for Boxing Day carousing. Some will dance on stilts, 3 to 4 feet tall. Some will dress like cows, prance and flounce to drums and steel pans, playing soca, calypso, and reggae. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel all right. Oh, overdosed on anticipation. I wait with my sister and brother for the first sign of costumes in bright colors, teeming with flowers, birds, abstract art, each with enough fabric for a full-size bedspread. We stand at the side of the road and forget about damage left by monsoon rains. We forget about school and homework due after the holidays. Our faces burn from the tropical afternoon sun and cool down from the northeast trade winds as each beat, beat of drum and steel pan makes us shake our child-sized hips. And we sing along as they pass by. Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and me want go home. This next poem, the title makes me think of, I just want to celebrate this title. It's called, It's Ice Cream O'Clock. And the afternoon before Christmas, and Mr. Jagroup is sing-songing across the road. You hear him above the Christmas carol coming from the giant Grundig radio on the shelf. Ice cream cone, fudgesicle, popsicle, custard, come and get it. You grab the money, forget to say thanks, and your mother warns in staccato, stay in front of the yard. You run down the long path between house and road with plans to obey so you can buy more in 2 weeks when Mr. Jag will return in his rickety cart with the antique freezer powered by giant blocks of ice he buys from the ice factory. As if guided by its own brain, your right leg thrusts itself forward in defiance. Mr. Jag roars, "Wait right there, your mother would kill me." He brings over your favorite, vanilla. Again, you forget thank you and begin to lick like Christmas is today, like it's your only meal in forever, like the first lick lets you taste joy and the rest must live up to that. Like licking is how you pay homage to the gods of ice cream. You walk back to the house, climb the stairs, sit on the landing for a few last licks before trying to describe this marvel to your mother. Mommy, lick this cone and see if your brain will start talking to itself and your stomach will shake faster and faster and breeze will blow from behind your navel. Mommy, and your eyes will open this big, you show her. And many more things, but I forget. Your mother takes the cone, thanks you, and without telling you there's nothing left for her to lick, she sticks her tongue into the shell, takes a few seconds, then tells you you're right. She can feel everything you felt. It's ice cream o'clock, you squeal with loud giggles. It's ice cream o'clock, your mother echoes, her giggles louder than yours. This next poem is for the children for whom a holiday, any holiday celebration, is not even a distant dream. We must never forget about them. The speaker in this poem first makes a request of God, then he questions God, then he gives God a way out, and then he pleads. A Christmas prayer. I need some time alone with you, God. I've got something serious to say. How come you're always too busy to hear me when I pray? I know I'm only 11 and I don't maybe have the right touch, but I've been praying this since December began. You act like I'm asking too much. I've done a lot of thinking lately. I've figured out what I should do. I must wait till I'm grown to get what I want and quit interrupting you. So Don't bother with the Christmas 10 speed or the radio control car. And don't worry about my father's address. He's already gone too far. Don't get us a better apartment on the other side of town. My family and I will stick it out here until better can be found. But the dry eyes for my mother, God, and the way how she's always so tired. Please give her all the strength she needs. Please keep her from getting fired. Protect her when she goes out and when she comes home late from work. Make sure she doesn't get shot by some gun-crazy jerk. Let Mama know how much you love her. Let Mama know how much you care. And even if my daddy never comes back, let Mama know you will always be there. Please, God. Hopefully, that transposes our mindset from the key of caring into the key of action. I'm up to the second to last poem now, talking about keys. It's a jazz piece, and I say, whenever we're in the vicinity of jazz, it's celebration time. So let's celebrate the holidays with a jazz piece. It's called Reverence Unleashed. Me and Charlie, we could bend a spoon with one note if we blew hard enough. So we blew hard and we blew long and we bent spoons till one day his mother stormed into the room waving a big old pot spoon bent like a whole note over his head. That's like 4 beats right there, Charlie pointed. Yes, boy, his mama said, and you could be famous one day, boy, but not if you're dead, boy. Me and Miss Billy, we used to swing them notes like the wind swings itself, whoosh, past a tree stump that was expecting it, just not so sudden like this. Me and the Duke, we could make dust rattle from the Cotton Club all the way to Frankfurt, and on the return trip, do it again, twice as bad. Me and Fats, we could make notes levitate near the pool hall where balls would forget how to roll. Players would drop pool cues and pat themselves down, searching for their voices so they could murmur, "Oh God." Me and Mr. Winton, we taught syncopation how to syncopate, pulled it clear out of its makeshift grave, said, "Here's some notes. Show me what you got." Me and Miss Sarah, we could transform blades of grass into rose petals and thorn tips into diamonds. And let's say you're a small god. And let's say you're healthy. Me and Dinah, we can make you so dizzy you start praying to yourself. Confused that notes so gloriously alive can make your heart beat backwards. Me and the Armstrong, we used to push notes so far they would come at you like a stride out of Harlem, misbehaving and happy tangling like it's Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Me and Miss Ella, we used to haul them notes right back like fish in a seine so we could entice them to let one another loose. And if Thelonious came a-calling, me and Miss Mary Lou Williams, we could subtract sense from nonsense, then use the difference to make a balm for what may ail you tomorrow. So now you know. The notes you thought had abandoned the song a while back, yeah, They were hanging at the juke joint with Miles and me. And my final poem for the evening is dedicated to all of us, and especially to those who celebrate Christmas for its original reason. This piece is called Born for Easter. When Mary delivered the baby that would one day deliver her, wise men had no idea the foolish things of this child can confound them. Their long trek signaled the many miles of uphill road he was destined to climb, for Calvary was no cul-de-sac. They brought expensive gifts to a little boy who was already the most priceless gift of all. Herders visited the Good Shepherd, who had to be born at the job site, where the scent of animal waste would sting his new nose like the stench of our sin assaulting his father's. Imagine this. The first time the toddler brought Joseph's homemade sippy cup to his lips, his hands may have trembled under the weight of the wood as he practiced how to sip without spilling. He must have smacked his lips and shook his legs with delight, for he did not yet know that like this first cup, there would be a last. He would stagger under the weight of wood. He would bring the cup to his lips, sip from it, hold it out to his father and say to him, "Too bitter, Father. Please take this cup from me." His legs would shake when the nails pierced them. And this time, he would spill many drops. This poem needs to be summed up, so here's the gist. Mary delivered the baby who would one day deliver us. He would be given name after name after name, above all names, more than 70, a number mighty like the weight of the burden his father had designed for his shoulders before the world even had foundation. He's named Jesus the Christ, Alpha, Rabboni, seed of Abraham. He's pearl of great price, Omega, Logos, Lamb of God, Son of Man. He's Rose of Sharon, Adonai, Messiah, seed of David. He's wonderful Counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Oh, come, come, my dear friends, let us adore him. Come, 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 let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Gretna. Thank you for that beautiful reading. It's so full of life. So appreciative. Thank you. Our next guest tonight. An ebullient and central member of the New Jersey poetry scene for over 40 years, Sander Zulauf founded and edited the first 10 volumes of Index of American Periodical Verse from 1971 to 1980, and he is editor emeritus of the Journal of New Jersey Poets. He retired as professor emeritus after 44 years of teaching writing and literature. 44 years. His books include Succasunna, New Jersey, Living Waters, Where Time Goes, and Bashō in America, his most recent book. He also served as one of the 3 editors of the well-regarded and cherished book, The Poets of New Jersey, From Colonial to Contemporary, which starts with Philip Freneau and goes forth. It's a terrific survey of the many incredible poets who called New Jersey home at some point in their lives. He produced and directed 3 video disc anthologies of distinguished American poets reading their poems. It's called The First American Poetry Disc, volumes 1 through 3. In 1999, Bishop John Shelby Spong appointed him first poet laureate of the Episcopal Church in the Newark Diocese. Anyone who's spent some time with Sandy has a good Sander Zulauf story. I have many. Here's one. When Sandy had a boat, he would dock on the shore of Lake Hapakong, a boat that would one day sink, although Sandy says it didn't sink. He would organize an annual fishing trip and call it the Great Poet Float. In order to go, you had to agree to do two things: write poems and drink beer. Fishing was optional, but fish we did nonetheless. And as Sandy, Joe Weil, and I were casting our rapalas off the stern and chatting about the late New Jersey poet Joe Salerno, Sandy had a strike. I've got a poem, I've got a poem, Sandy started shouting. Sandy, it's a fish, not a poem, I yelled back. Poor boy, he said, doesn't know the difference between a pike and a sonnet. He reeled in some lakeweed, but immediately started writing a poem that would end up being published in the Pittsburgh-based journal 5 AM, then in his 2008 book, Where Time Goes, which was selected as one of the best books of 2008 by Grace Cavaliere in the Montserrat Review. Reading his poems, I think of Sandy's Rapala. Sandy's poems do that, shimmer until the last moment when they cut you. The difference is, it's not certain death you're heading towards. It feels like a net of life. Sander Zulauf.
There you go.
Hey, here I
There
am.
you are.
Thank you, BJ.
You're welcome. It is good to see you. Welcome.
I hate to inform you this, but I've given up fishing.
Is it because your boat sank?
Yeah, no, I have a little poem in Bashō in America about it. When I realized I snared fish with their hunger, I gave up fishing.
Oh, admirable. We look forward to your reading. Thanks for joining us tonight, Sandy.
Well, thank you, BJ, and thank you to the Warren County Arts and Heritage Cultural Commission and to Warren County College, and it's now Warren Community College, I believe. Names change and I can't keep up with them. So as Howard Nemeroff famously said, after I introduced him at CCM a long time ago, back in the 70s, and now the anticlimax. The poems I'm going to read tonight trace my growth from childhood to adulthood, and not necessarily in the order they were written, but in the order that the experiences happened. The first one is called A Christmas Tree. My father worked with his father, leaving before dawn 6 days a week, building houses on the Palisades. On his day off, he took me up the backyard path far into the cold woods. The air was ready for snow. This comes to me now here. I think about the years of trees that we have carried home, trees that we hunted and posed for fullness in the vacant lot beside the church, then closed the deal with the man near the burning barrel, sap and needles on our woolen gloves. I tried to keep up, holding the saw tightly in my mittens. Farther into the woods we moved, beyond the charcoal shades of branches, flat against the coming snow. We turned from the path and made our way to a tufted brownweed clearing. The woods behind absorbed our silence. The tree stands there. Our breaths disappear in the stillness. On the sunless Sunday before Christmas, I freeze with the unconscious fear of Isaac. I see beyond the tree to the sheep on the distant ridge. The endless woods have ended. I want only to go home. When I was little, my mother took me to Bamberger's in Newark to see Santa Claus. And she had a picture made of it. And I came across the picture years ago and wrote this poem that's entitled True Believer. And you can see this kid staring at Santa Claus thinking like, man, I got this guy now. True believer. I'm not sure what I'm asking for here, nor how my mother remained sane that year, hearing Gene Autry over and over about Rudolph's very shiny nose and his social assimilation problems. From that yellow plastic record, I played endlessly on my little suitcase record player on the kitchen floor, hypnotized by the spin. That's me in the picture, looking at the man full of hope and happiness. The DeCamp bus brought us from Livingston to Bamberger's Newark to learn the supernatural, how it works, how to trust the supernatural, how to survive it. For my cowboy shirt, I think I'm asking him for a palomino, which of course I did not get. Instead, he brought a nativity set and placed it on the radiator cover in the living room. One Christmas tree light bulb for a star, an ox and donkey, sheep and shepherds abiding, camels and kings approaching, a blue China Mary, and old Joseph praying over a little baby in a feeding bin filled with hay. Not exactly what's asked for, just what's ultimately given. And this Sunday is known as the third Sunday in Advent, and that's the title of this poem. And this occurred years later when I was a lay minister in my church in Succasunna. And once or twice a month, I would go to the Mary Hart Nursing Home, which was a large home then. It wasn't the elaborate brick building that's there now. And it held so many beautiful souls there, and so many experiences that really were kind of phenomenal to me. Third Sunday in Advent. She looks up at me, happy to see me. After I finish bringing Margaret O'Malley back from her tears. Her right blue eye fogged over behind her glasses. A smile pushing her cheeks to rubber balls, sandwiching her bulby nose, baring her ancient teeth, refusing for 1 minute to give up hope. She sits there tied in, her hands working the hem of her sweater as carefully as if she were knitting it, knitting forever her unfinished sweater, forever beyond finishing. looking up at me, standing over her, wishing her a Merry Christmas, smiling blindly, blessing me. And Helen begins clapping as Thelma gets wheeled in, while down the hall Mabel yells and yells and yells at the ending world. Excuse me. I'm going to read a poem that has 4 parts, and it's told from the perspective of the shepherds. I think everybody tells this from the perspective of many other figures in the nativity scenes that have been painted and told for centuries and millennia. But this is from the viewpoint of the shepherds, and it's called Of Shepherds and Kings, and it's in 4 parts. 1, the moonless starlight, that star. We shepherds shiver alone on the hills above Bethlehem. Our fire sends crackling spark flurries skyward into the night. We share what's left in the wineskins, what's left of the bread. They suddenly float above our fire, making night into day, a choir of terrifying angels. Fear not, they say. Now we shiver at their blazing wings. They sing of David, once a boy here long ago, who held lost lambs in his arms. Chosen by God, anointed by Samuel, king. His line, they sing, a newborn baby in the city of David, the census, denarii, for conquest, for empire, the Roman taxes, Caesar Augustus. Our olives from the old trees, lemons, fish, grapes, garlic, our wines and vinegars from the old vines, our lambs all taken for taxes. Go to the inn, they tell us. Behold the glory. The Messiah, they tell us. He is there in the stable behind it. The animals keeping him warm. That cave. 2, we find the cave behind the inn. The baby there, named Jesus, in a feeding trough, asleep on the sweet hay. The ox, the donkey, the lambs there, all our frozen breaths. The baby wakes, young Mary lifts him, takes him to her breast, feeds him. Old Joseph, stunned at what's transpired, nods off. Later, the procession arrives, 3 starmen, kings from the east with gifts, one at a time announcing frankincense, the fragrance of anointings, gold, the imperishable metal, myrrh, the oil of destiny, given to this new baby who will someday be king. And the warriors in town drinking, gambling, grumbling out of earshot of centurions, old Simeon at the temple, the rabbi, the priests, the moil, that tradition into the fold of Abraham. 3, Breka, the angels warn us in a dream. They must escape from Herod. Leave your sheep, help get them safely into Egypt. The palms, the pools, the green fronds, the cedars, the camels, the wadis, the white and pink oleanders, the sand, the psalm singing, the warding off of bandits across the Sinai, reciting the blessing each sundown, offering thanksgiving for safe passage. At Herod's command, back in Bethlehem, the blood of innocents, the howls of inconsolables, the brutal deaths, the sacred, the worldly, their intersection at this birth. 4. Once more in a dream, the angels come, telling us it's safe. Herod is dead. We return to Bethlehem. Joseph takes his wife and child to Nazareth. Back in the moonless cold here, the star gone. The only angels now are frozen breaths. The only singing are lambs bleating, their bells clanking at their necks. We poke at our fire, send the sparks skyward. The heavenly, the earthly, the love, the death, the baby, just a memory. This story, those angels, that star. It's a sure sign of winter. Their nose runs. This is a poem by William Carlos Williams, and it too is based on that story of the kings coming to present gifts. He took it from Matthew, the second chapter of Matthew, and created this poem out of it. It's called The Gift by that essential New Jersey poet, William Carlos Williams. As the wise men of old brought gifts guided by a star to the humble birthplace of the God of love, the devils, as an old print shows, retreated in confusion. What could a baby know of gold ornaments, of frankincense and myrrh, of priestly robes and devout genuflections? But the imagination knows all stories before they are told, and knows the truth of this one, past all defection. The rich gifts, so unsuitable for a child, though devoutly proffered, stood for all that love can bring. The men were old. How could they know of a mother's needs or a child's appetite? But as they kneeled, the child was fed. They saw it and gave praise. A miracle had taken place. Hard gold to love, a mother's milk before their wondering eyes. The ass brayed, the cattle lowed. It was their nature. All men by their nature give praise. It is all they can do. The very devils by their flight give praise. What is death beside this? Nothing. The wise men came with gifts and bowed down to worship this perfection. And now, Miss Gretna and I have a poem by another poet. We found out that many people think this poem was written by Clement Moore, but it was proven as recently as the year 2014 to have been written by a Revolutionary War soldier named Henry Livingston. And so I'm going to dedicate this to the memory of Henry Livingston, who got cheated out of recognition for his poem for years and decades and centuries. And the poem is called The Night Before Christmas.
'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse.
The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads.
And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap.
When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter.
Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash.
The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below.
When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer.
With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick.
More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name.
Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Dunder and Blitzen.
To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all.
As dry leaves before the hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky.
So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too.
And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof.
As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound.
He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot.
A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his sack.
His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry.
His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow.
The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath.
He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly.
He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself.
A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread.
He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk.
And laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose.
Sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle.
But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight,
Happy Christmas to all, and to all
good night.